Ordinance of the bill is also passed by a vote of 4 to 1. Senator Hennessy to declare.
Senator Hennessy.
Thank you, Madam President. I am honored and humbled to be the one before you to move House Bill 455FN, abolishing the death penalty in New Hampshire, ought to pass. State-sanctioned killing is cruel, ineffective, and inherently flawed. The committee heard tragic, heart-wrenching testimony from those whose loved ones were murdered. Many testified that state killings do nothing to honor the lives of their lost loved ones. The taking of another life cannot do the one thing that everyone wants, to bring back their family member. Instead, through the multiple appeals death row inmates are afforded, families are traumatized over and over again. Once the appeal process is exhausted, the cycle of violence continues. Another coffin is filled. This brings little peace of mind to families, just more sorrow, confusion, and death. At least to 2 families who are devastated and traumatized. The committee also heard testimony from former AGs, judges, prosecutors, and law enforcement officers that state-sponsored killing serves no deterrent effect. And this is also clear in much of the research that has been provided. Saying and wishing that it did deter crimes does not make it so. Crimes are typically premeditated or committed in the heat of the moment. The former don't think they'll be caught. The latter aren't thinking at all. Murderers don't think twice just because the state may execute them instead of sentencing them to spend the remainder of their days in a 6x8 cell. The death penalty protects society no better than sentencing murderers to life in prison without parole. Beyond the ineffective nature of the death penalty, the process which doles out the gravest sanctions of all is inherently flawed. People who express their opposition to capital punishment don't sit on juries. The individuals who make up our criminal justice system, law enforcement officers, prosecutors, judges, and jurors, strive to carry out their duties the best they can, but they are, after all, human beings who, like us, all make mistakes. 156 individuals have been exonerated from death row since 1973. Innocent people have been executed. I was fortunate to meet a remarkable woman who was resilient beyond my understanding. She was accused of killing her own baby, and she was put on death row. So on top of having lost her new baby, she was put on death row. And then it was discovered, I believe it was 11 years later, that her baby died of sudden infant death syndrome. Fortunately, she had not yet been put to death herself. And now she is talking to others about the travesty of those who are innocent and put on death row and executed. It should not surprise us that the biases and prejudices that infect society generally influence the determination of who is sentenced to death. The government, in fact all of us assembled here, cannot be trusted to kill without error. We should be committed to a rule of law that places great value on human life, even for those that commit reprehensible acts. Finally, the financial costs of the death penalty cannot be overstated. The costs are generally 4 to 5 times, at least, the cost of keeping someone imprisoned with life without parole. Seeking capital punishment requires extraordinary resources. The multiple appeals after conviction require even more. With the budget season upon us, we know our government of limited resources could put those funds to better use on crime prevention, education, the opioid crisis, the mental health crisis. The list is long. It is time to abolish the death penalty in New Hampshire. Now is the time. Now. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Hennessy. The question is on House Bill 455 at Ben. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Senator Precious.
Thank you, Madam President. Last term, I voted against keeping the death penalty for the reasons of the cost. The millions of dollars, the years of litigation, the fact that I don't think we even have a death chamber, and no executioner, and it's been since 1939 since we even did it. This term, I sat through all the committee hearings. We listened to the Police Association come. They had valid reasons for keeping it. They really did. But we also heard from concerned citizens of this state. We had many clergy come. We had retired judges, retired AGs, prison administrators, survivors of victims, former police officers, and a former death row inmate who served 8 years on death row until he was exonerated and gone free. All with compelling testimony on why we should get rid of the death penalty. Now, as I get older, I realize for a fact we're actually all on death row. It's just a matter of time until our name gets called. And when my name gets called, I'm going to go before the Lord with a huge basket full of regrets and misdeeds, just like you will. But I'll tell you what won't be in that basket of misdeeds. It won't be regrets. What won't be in there is that I did not turn a deaf ear to those who came and took the time to speak to us to get rid of the death penalty. Because today, I am going to vote to repeal the death penalty as I would tomorrow or any other day. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Bryant. Senator Parsons to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to ask the body to overturn the ought-to-pass motion on repealing the death penalty. We've had this discussion in this chamber for a number of years, and there have been many reasons given why we should repeal the death penalty. But I ask all of you to look at the statute itself. We have set such a high bar for the implication of the death penalty that for almost 100 years it hasn't been used. So why now? Why now is it so imperative that we get rid of the death penalty? And I will argue it's because we have one individual on death row. One individual that met the requirements that had been put into place by former legislatures. He committed a heinous crime. A crime against a police officer. And I will agree with my good friend from District 7 that we sat and we heard a lot of testimony from people. But one thing that we really didn't hear from, one group of people, because we couldn't, and that was the victims themselves. Why? Because the victims are dead. Did they deserve to die? No, they didn't. Many were just going about their everyday lives, doing the things that we do every day, not ever expecting that they would be murdered. So, we've heard words today about cruel and ineffective. How cruel is it for someone to take someone else's life, an innocent life? How cruel is that? What revenge or soothing the family's soul or anything else like that. We are talking about the administration of justice. This is about justice and nothing more, nothing less. We are all entitled to our own religious beliefs, but we are talking about justice. And you have to remove those beliefs because everybody believes something differently. Every single one of us believes something different concerning the sanctity of life. And we will continue to have those discussions in this chamber. We heard about the appeals process. We have the appeals process to make sure we got it right. We just don't convict someone and then take them out to the front of the State House and administer that justice. There's a long and involved and yes, expensive appeals process. But someone in this room, please tell me that the person who was murdered isn't worth that price. Isn't that life worth that? Money shouldn't be into this discussion about, well, we can take this money and we can save it on for something else. Doesn't that victim deserve the justice and the process? We've heard about that the taking of a human life again, I'm sorry, I tend to get a little worked up over this issue. Future laws. And I want to ask you something. Can anybody in this room guarantee me that in the future, say 10, 20 years from now, that another legislature isn't going to come along and tell the people that, well, life in prison is inhumane. So we shouldn't be sentencing people who commit heinous crimes to life in prison. Is that something that you would support? I would argue that no. Most of us here wouldn't argue that. But we can't guarantee the families that the people that have murdered their loved ones is not going to serve that full life in prison. We cannot guarantee that. Nor can we guarantee them that if we convert the sentence of Mr. Addison, that he might not go ahead and kill somebody else in prison. Because it happens. People that are convicted of murder will kill other people in prison. I don't want to be responsible for that death. And I don't think anybody in this room wants to bear that responsibility either. We're talking about justice. And what I think is interesting is while we had a lot of people come up to talk to us today in the committee about their experiences, and I will agree with my good friend from District 7 that some of these experiences were horrible, but they didn't happen here. People that were wrongfully convicted, it did not happen here in New Hampshire. And I'd like to tell all of you that Citizens Count did a survey, a poll, here in New Hampshire. The vast majority of the people of the state of New Hampshire support the death penalty. They see the wisdom of it. But unfortunately, the vast majority of people who live in here in New Hampshire are working. And they cannot take the time off from their jobs to come up here and talk to us about what they believe should happen. So please keep all of that in mind. We have a very stringent law. Very rarely has it been used once in almost 100 years. And the day that this passes and signed into law, Mr. Addison's sentence will be converted to life in prison. You cannot create laws in that manner. They're not prospective. And you need to look at the experiences of other states when they have done this. Ask them what happened to the people they had on death row. It's something called the equal protection argument. You cannot treat one person differently from another. Mr. Addison will go to the First U.S. District Court, which is just a few streets over, and argue equal protection, and his sentence will be converted to life in prison. Please talk to Mrs. Briggs about that, the wife of the police officer that was murdered in the line of duty. She will not be able to speak to her husband again, whereas Mr. Addison will be able to talk to his family, have them come up to visit him. Officer Briggs will never see his children grow up, go to high school, graduate, get that first license, go to college, get married, have children, experience being a grandfather, because that was taken away from him. Please, think about all of this. We all want to be forgiving in our society. We all believe in giving people a second chance. But there are times when people do not deserve a second chance. They've already had that second chance. And again, look at the statute, because it requires that someone has already been convicted of a felony prior to this. That is why we have had people who have murdered police officers and they get life in prison instead of the death penalty. I just ask all of you to think of the victims. There are victims' families that are willing to they don't want to deal with this, and they forgive. But there are many others who don't, and they want justice. Justice for their family members. Think of those people as well. And think about how you would feel if this happened to a member of your family, one of your loved ones. Could you honestly say, yes, I forgive you? That's a hard thing to do, and I congratulate anybody who is capable of doing it. But please, I ask all of you, think about this. This is a law that protects our police officers and people that have been murdered in a home invasion. That was added fairly recently in reaction to a horrific case that happened in Mount Vernon, where an innocent woman and her daughter were attacked in their home, and she was murdered, and her daughter was tortured and left for dead. Are you telling me that that does not deserve the death penalty? When someone knowingly does something like that? Madam President, we've had this discussion many, many, many times. And it's something that I feel very strongly about. It's not an easy position to take, because you are talking about taking someone's life. But I think people here in this room need to understand, we are creating the law, but it is the people, our constituents, who make that decision on whether or not to sentence somebody to death. It is the jury process. And by taking away this law, we are taking away the ability of our constituents to make that decision. We are making that decision for them. I don't want to take that away from my constituents. I want them to sit in the courtroom, be a part of the jury process, and make that very, very difficult decision. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Carson. Senator Carson, Senator from District 14, Senator Carson,
Yes.
thank you for taking the questions. When was the last time a person was put to death in New Hampshire?
1939.
And we've heard a lot of talk this morning about how people were put on death row and found innocent. When was the last time a person, or do you know when the last time a person was placed on death row in New Hampshire and then released because they were found innocent?
I can't answer that question, I don't know.
Further question, sorry, follow up? And you actually spoke briefly about this on, is that true that if we change this law, that Officer Briggs could feasibly get not released, but reduce?
Yes, that is true. In fact, in the state of Connecticut, when they repealed their death penalty, there were a number of individuals that did sue the state of Connecticut because of it. Because the way that the law had been written, now you had two separate classes of inmates, some that were sentenced to death, and some that were given life in prison. Senator would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Colleagues. I rise in support of HB 455 to repeal the death penalty in New Hampshire. Thurgood Marshall said, "The American people say they support the death penalty. Educate people, and they will not support the death penalty." I was first introduced to the concept of the death penalty through the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project is a national organization dedicated to exonerating wrongly convicted individuals through DNA testing and reforming the criminal justice system to prevent future injustice. In my research, I found that African Americans make up only 13% of the nation's population, yet almost 50% of those currently on the federal death row are African Americans. It seems that people of color and the poor are impacted disproportionately. George Stinney Jr. of South Carolina was the youngest person executed in the United States. In 1944, this 14-year-old African-American youth was accused of murdering 2 young girls. There was no physical evidence against him, but 3 officers testified that he admitted to the killings. In one day, he was sentenced to death. 81 days later, he was executed. Today, his family members are working to prove his innocence and have him posthumously exonerated. Arnie Alpert wrote an article titled "Martin Luther King's First Fight Was Against the Death Penalty." He describes the story of a 16-year-old Jeremiah Reeves who, under duress, confessed to raping a white woman. He later recanted, but was found guilty by an all-white jury and put to death in 1958. According to Stuart Banner, who authored The Death Penalty in American History, in the first half of the 20th century, the southern states punished many crimes by death, only if they were committed by blacks. In the second half of the century, they accomplished the same result by delegating to all-white juries the discretion to choose capital or non-capital punishment. At an MLK ceremony a few years ago at Alpine Grove, I had the great honor to meet Ernest Shuja Graham, who was incarcerated in California at the age of 18. In 1973, while serving time at the Dual Vocational Institute in Stockton, California, Mr. Graham was charged with the killing of a prison guard. He was sent to San Quentin's death row in 1976 and spent over 11 years in prison. He endured multiple trials, including trials by juries that excluded all African American jurors. Finally, in 1979, the California Supreme Court overturned the death conviction. It turned out that a prison guard was the real killer. The 3 cases I shared with you each involved young African American men who at a young age were convicted of crimes of rape and murder, not necessarily guilty, yet sentenced to death. As I tried to understand why there were so many disparities, I sought the knowledge of Sister Helen Craigie, the author of Dead Man Walking. I met her here in Concord several years ago. I asked why there was such racial disparity in justice, and in her folksy way, she recanted her early career working with the defense lawyers in Atlanta who took cases that nobody wanted. People who were poor had lawyers who did nothing for them. Black people were bumped from juries. They had 6 ways to Sunday to get black people off juries. When white people were killed, the death penalty was sought. When black people were killed, who were lucky, you could find 3 lines in the newspaper about the death of an African American. White people who have killed people of color got lesser penalties. I was struck by her analysis as she explained, it's not that people are bad or evil. It's about identification. When people like us, like her, are killed, we can relate to that. In the criminal justice system, 95% of judges judges and prosecutors are white. The system is white. She also noted the American people are not bent on the death penalty. It is not something we give much thought to. We are busy living our lives. And as Thurgood Marshall said, when people are educated on the death penalty, they often reject the death penalty. In recent history, New Hampshire has had 3 capital murders. 2 police officers killed and murdered for hire. All are abhorrent crimes. I believe that the guilty should spend their lives in prison. I also have great concern about the fact that this is archaic, costly, institutionally discriminatory, and violent. I was also taken by the hearings that we attended in the judiciary and the people who were able to feel resolution because the killers had had a life in prison sentence, as well as taken by Mrs. Briggs and the fact that you can never leave this behind. You're constantly reliving this terrible event, but there is no end and there is no peace. So I ask you, Madam President and fellow senators, isn't this the time that we should end the death penalty in New Hampshire? I hope that you will join me in voting yes.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ward to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm a victim. My father was killed before I was 8. I never saw him. And he never saw us grow up. My mother forgave whoever it was, and I am going to vote in favor of this.
Question before the body is on House Bill 455 right now. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? Roll call has been requested by Senator Geiger, second by Senator Hill. Question before the body is on ought to pass on House Bill 455 FM. The clerk will call the vote.
Senator Starr.
Yes.
Senator Geiger.
Yes.
Senator Bradley.
No.
Senator Waters.
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
No.
Senator French.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Deitch.
Yes.
Senator Cron.
Yes.
Senator Chanley.
Yes.
Senator LeVey.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Carson.
No.
Senator Feltes.
Yes.
Senator Kavanaugh.
No.
Senator Reagan.
Yes.
Senator Bertzel.
No.
Senator D'Alessandro is excused. Senator Fulopar.
Yes.
Senator Morse.
No.
Senator Morgan.
Yes.
Senator Sherman.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes. Motion ought to pass is adopted, 17-6. The bill is ordered to third reading.
Recess.